Africa's trade hasn't changed since colonial times. It remains overly reliant on extractive industries such as fossil fuels, metals, and ores. So, although Africa represents 17% of the world's population, it only accounts for 2.3% of global trade. Extractive industries tend to be more capital-intensive and less labor-intensive. They create fewer local jobs and are more reliant upon foreign capital, which needs to be repaid from profits. The prices of these goods also tend to be volatile, making economies that rely on them more susceptible to boom and bust cycles. Policymakers and development partners haven't shown enough motivation to move African economies away from these extractive industries. Even though Africa's total trade has risen in recent decades, global growth has increased at a faster rate. As a result, Africa's share of the world trade has stagnated, falling from a height of 5% in the 1970s to between 2% and 3% in recent decades. Even when African exports soared in the 2000s, they were only keeping pace with a broader worldwide expansion boom led by China's accelerating economy. Africa's exports have experienced repeated recent setbacks, most notably in 2009, 2015, and 2020. These setbacks corresponded with global oil price shocks and illustrated how overly reliant Africa is on exporting petrol. 5 of the top 30 oil-producing countries in the world are African. The continent has provided almost 10% of the world's oil in the last 10 years, and fuel is the main export in 12 African countries. For half of these countries, it makes up 90% of their exports. But an over-reliance on a volatile commodity that doesn't create large numbers of local jobs is stunting the growth of Africa's trade and the wider development of African economies in general. African trade is dominated by 6 countries. Between 2016 and 2020, South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Egypt, and Morocco exported more than the rest of the continent combined. In total, 26% of Africa's exports go to the EU, 18% go to other African countries, and 15% goes to China. In terms of imports, 26% come from the EU, 16% from China, and 15% from elsewhere in Africa. The EU and China are vital for Africa's trade, but it is an unbalanced partnership. Africa only accounts for 3.9% of China's imports and only 2.2% of the EU's. Although the continent's biggest exports are the extractive industries we mentioned earlier, within Africa there is a different story. Inter-African trade is dominated by manufacturing, which makes up 45% of the total. Fuels are second with 21% and foodstuffs third with 19%. These are only the formal numbers. Recent estimates suggest that informal trade flows account for between 7% and 16% of intra-African trade. So, how can we boost African trade to create more jobs and boost development across the continent? Initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area can boost intra-African trade by removing barriers and tariffs. This could help formalize the informal trading sectors, which would also boost Africa's economic transformation by promoting Africa's manufacturing sectors. Trading partners can help by removing barriers and improving incentives for trading with African partners in the same way they have done for partners in other parts of the world. They can also support further regional integration across Africa. These moves will help transform Africa's trade and enable its economy to develop value-added industries, aid its economic development, and give the continent a platform to boost its global trade to a level befitting of Africa's size and global importance.